I want to switch to decentralization. So traditional financial services and the entirety of the world has always operated through a centralized model where companies come in the middle. They aggregate a lot of attention or resources, whatever it may be. They control the supply and demand of the flow of those attention and resources at the center of what they have created: Facebook, Google, Tesla, or not Tesla, Amazon, etc. As a result of that, it creates a lot of value, but sometimes that value, or most of the time, that value is disproportionate in terms of who the value goes to, likely the stakeholders of people who are at the center of that centralized authority. Why is decentralization, in your opinion, the future for a majority of the things that we see in the world? And how does Palantir actually play a role in the decentralizing of that future?
Let me just take a simple example, which is machine learning by itself, right? So like, we want this future where machines can help us and we can be enabled, and things we do are made better by machines. But the amount of data we have to train them on is actually pretty astronomical. And the models themselves get really, really, really big as this data set grows. And in response to that, there's an approach called federated learning, which then decentralizes the process of training those models across millions of devices, right? That is a decentralized approach to a big data problem that's required for us to reach the scale we want to reach. So part of the reason the future is decentralized is there's no centralized way to scale the problem up, it's just going to break down. So you have to use decentralized approaches to meet the scale of the amount of data and the amount of training that has to be done. So there's that part of it, which is kind of like this foundational layer. The other layer of like decentralization is just that we need more redundancy and durability in the way we deploy applications. So we don't want to go down when Amazon goes down. We don't want to go down when GCP goes down. We want to be up all the time. And so this problem of redundancy and durability, high availability, the way you solve that is through decentralization. And there are emerging platforms and architectures to solve this problem where you can have active stacks where if I deploy out on AWS and I deploy out on GCP and I deploy on Cloudflare at the edge, I can have all those stacks interacting in a common state of an application. That's a new kind of way of working. But that's going to solve this durability and reliability problem. And why is that important? Because we may be at war, the world may be more destabilized, networks may become unstable, right? We take for granted today how stable things are. So I think that a big part of decentralization will also just be a shock to the stability, right? And so that's a big portion of why I want to decentralize. And the other has to do specifically with centralized authorities like identity management, Facebook and Google being major players in the identity sphere, where most of the federated login that we do and federated identity management is done by you signing in with Google or you signing in with Facebook. That is a fundamentally a flawed business model, in my opinion, and that regulation will come about that prevents you from storing that kind of information in the future. And to make that work, you need things like FIDO-Auth, which is backed by Microsoft and several other companies, where you use your mobile device combined with biometrics to do sort of passwordless logins. And that technology is here now and is being implemented, rolled out, and a lot of apps are used today. But I think that's really the future of identity, is that FIDO authorization model where you are the holder of your own data and you specify the terms in which that data gets used and shared. So there's all of those things kind of working together right now that are pushing towards decentralization.
So I want to push back a little bit on this question of centralized authorities and this argument you're making about logins. So I want to give a little example. If I log in on YouTube with Google, so first of all, what is YouTube? YouTube is a centralized database of the world's videos in one place, in which anyone has the freedom, theoretically, to upload a video and have that video gain them attention and an audience. If I log in with Google, then Google knows that Amit is logged in on YouTube and Amit is searching for Palantir content. And as a result of Amit searching for Palantir content, and we know that he's searching for Palantir content, we're going to show him a video by this guy named CodeStrap that put Palantir in his title. And we are going to create that connection via very advanced AI and machine learning to make Amit actually care about who CodeStrap is. And that level of content discovery is going to give a lot of benefits to CodeStrap because he gets my attention, and to me because I'm going to get the value of the content. And then underlying that foundational transaction is a business model around advertising. Now, what you're saying is there is a world in which that gets regulated out of existence, given governments don't want these entities to have all this attention. And my pushback, and I want to get your perspective on it from someone who's technical, is how does that freedom of discovery of content, which I think we all think is a net good for society, going to happen if there's not a centralized authority at scale that's able to aggregate content and then control the supply and demand of attention through algorithms?
Okay, so let me just say one thing there, that you don't need the data in a form that can be used by a central authority to push content to you. I can build a decentralized version of that exact same system where the content is pulled in by me, right? So like, and this is all enabled by Edge AI. So right now, the reason the models all live on Google servers, and you need to pass data to the models, right, in order to find the thing. Now imagine the model lives on your phone, and you've trained it on your profile, right? You started with a base model, it's trained on your profile, and that never leaves your phone. Now, instead of pushing the data to Google, Google pushes the data to you. You get the exact same experience, but it's been decentralized, and your personal information and your model has never left your phone.
So Google would still be able
sense?
to recommend us videos as a result of, and how would Google still be able to recommend us videos? Like it learns more about us without having our actual data?
It's pushing you content streams as opposed to you pushing it data streams. And your model on your device is going to decide what you want to watch.
So I guess the question then becomes, Google would have, like, I guess, is that efficient for Google to push a ton of content in the model? I mean, I guess I'm assuming
it's pushing a data stream. It's pushing a data stream. I actually built this architecture at where I work. We built a prototype of this on a paper. It's a napkin sketch basically. But you can build a model that can take global features of your interests and push a continuous content stream of the metadata about that content, and have the model on device find stuff you might be interested in and then present it to you. And that's a small amount of data. It's not a ton of data, okay?
Right.
And you're just using global features to make your selections of things you might be interested in. And all of the deep personal information about what you watch and what you connect with and all of that stays on device. It never leaves your device, okay? So you can still get this recommendation engine that you love and this ability to connect in a decentralized way in which your onboard model is making decisions about the content Google has versus Google making decisions about you based on what data you exchange with it. If that makes sense.
No, that does. So Google would still have YouTube around. YouTube would still push me videos. It just wouldn't know my search results. It would be this Edge AI thing that is trained in a decentralized way to be able to figure out the recommendations.
And that's a generalized, decentralized architecture that we're looking at as a way to invert, but a lot of people are experimenting with different architectures. That's just one that I came up with that when we looked at it, it looked viable. And then one of the neat things you can do too is you can combine encryption technologies with machine learning. And they're looking at this heavily in the health insurance space. So there's this technology called homomorphic encryption, which can enable us to encrypt data and make it useless outside of this encryption context. And I could have server-side models that then do machine learning on those models, right, and make recommendations to you. But no exchange of personal data takes place. The data is useless outside the encryption context, and the machine learning models are tuned to work with these encrypted values. And Microsoft Seal is a really good example of that type of a project. They have like a fitness tracker sample application they built using that. And so this is another technology that's coming around that could also enable this ability to not need to track this stuff centrally. But I'm a firm believer that we have enough architectures now to where this is basically viable, and it will become sort of the future. And it doesn't even need to be regulated out of existence. I mean, if people are concerned enough about their privacy, which they should be, and they want to control it, there'll be enough adopters of this kind of setup to where I think it will naturally just drive people away from these like centralized content aggregators. There's even models we're experimenting with where user-generated content. So like, wouldn't it be great as a publisher on YouTube if you owned your own content and you could take it with you wherever you went and no one could ever take it away from you or demonetize it? They could only demonetize a channel, right? And it would be nice if you didn't have to jump through like 50,000 hoops to get your videos out everywhere where they could be consumed. There are these decentralized model user-generated content that will you own and distribute your content in an anonymous way, to where you just publish it to a registry and you put the terms of the sharing of that content into a blockchain agreement, like a smart contract, and then anyone can consume that content under the terms of that smart contracts agreement, right? So that means these kind of decentralized user-generated content exchanges, they're much further out. They're like 5 years out. But I think they're a better model because it will allow you to monetize your content in the way you want it monetized, and people will have to adhere to it. So there are these really neat models that are coming up. It's a lot like DeFi. Like no one knew what DeFi was or understood it until it came around, you know, and it got adoption. These kind of decentralized ways of doing a centralized thing are going to feel really weird at first, but they are going to deliver value. I promise.
One of the
That makes sense.
no, that makes a lot of sense. And if advertising is not the primary business model at that point, because I don't think it can be if it's decentralized, then that means cryptocurrencies would have to be the foundational element, and tokenization.
No. Let me correct you there. We also did a proof of concept around a decentralized advertising model that works the exact same way, right? So you set up an ad network, right? Advertisers join the network. They put out their, like, say, movie trailers. They load up movie trailers in this ad network, and they put metadata on top of the movie trailers about what it's about, right? And we'll extract the content from the video and build up a rich profile on those ads. And then when you're a user attempting to use a service, we'll use the same inverted system I was telling you about before, where we open up a data stream of the available ads, and your model on device will determine which ads you're most likely to watch. And then it'll automatically put it into a screen where you can bid on it. So like you'll have like 5 trailers, and maybe like to watch Arcane's trailer is 5 cryptocurrency bucks, but to watch, you know, some other trailer is 15 cryptocurrency bucks. You watch one of them, you automatically get paid in that app's cryptocurrency, which you can then use to pay for services on that platform. Right. So like I'm telling you, there's all these other business models that are emerging right now. It's a crazy space to be in.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. I didn't even realize that. And I was thinking decentralized advertising would work, but I kind of felt philosophically the whole idea of decentralizing was that you don't have advertisers. That's kind of the ethos of the whole Web3 kind of movement. But I mean, yeah, if there are models to do that, especially if there's an incentive, because you can make money from consuming advertising.
Exactly.
Different model.
Exactly. And so that's why I'm such a fan of decentralization, because I feel like it gives you control, you know, like it hands control back to you in the terms on which you engage in these things. It's, you at least have a decision and hopefully get compensated on some level for like your participation. So